Hi there, it's Nicole for Lawn Fawn, and today I have a card with the brand new Sewn with Love stamps and coordinating dies. I love this stamp set. As a quilter and a sewer, I think it's so super cute and fun. There are several stamp sets that now include like baking and cooking and kitchen things in the Lawn Fawn line, and I love to see the addition of this cute little sewing machine and all of the accessories that go along with it. I created a little collage of sewing type images in the center of my card, stacked a couple of layers together, did a little embossed resist for the greeting for this pretty clean and simple card. I'm going to start by stamping the images with from Sewn with Love on some Nina Solar White cardstock. I am using the Misty. If you've watched any of my videos over the past few months, most of the time I do use the Misty, and this is simply because it is the best way to get a very good, crisp stamped impression. It's really important when you're coloring in an image and you want that outline to be really good. In fact, this is a good example where I'm stamping additional spools with an acrylic block and having a really hard time getting a good stamped impression. For whatever reason, it just wasn't working that great, and the Misty makes it so easy to get that really great impression. You don't have to worry about pressing too hard in one area or another. It's just a nice, even stamped impression. Once I have all of my images stamped, I am going to start coloring them in with Copic markers. I sped this up a little bit, but there's quite a bit of coloring. I did start with the BG11 marker and quickly found it's dry and I need the refill for it. So I'm going to switch over to BG10, which is very close in color. This one is just simply too dry. All of a sudden, I have found that a lot of my markers are starting to dry out. It kind of came on quick. It must be I've had them or the majority of my markers for several years now, and I use them all the time. So I find it kind of interesting how long they've lasted, and B, you can definitely tell which markers are my favorites, the ones that are all starting to kind of run out of ink. I love that these markers are refillable. It is so fantastic. Last weekend, I spent the weekend with some crafty friends, and one of them is a Copic instructor, and she taught me the correct way to refill the markers, and I thought that was fantastic. I love learning new things like that. So I have been spending the last week or so refilling quite a few of my markers. I am coloring in at my sewing machine with some shades of aqua, blending that out after each addition. I've got 3 different colors here: BG10, 15, and 18. Then I'm going to do some yellows here for the accents on my machine. You could go with whatever you wanted to. You could even use some very light grays to keep it looking sort of white. I decided I wanted everything to be very colorful. The edges of the spools are the only things done in a neutral-ish tone, other than the thimble, which I will do in some shades of cool gray. But other than that, I want everything to have quite a bit of color. I'm going to color in my pin cushion here, pretty traditional, with reds and greens. I think if anyone started sewing like I did, we all started out with this little red pin cushion, the tomato pin cushion, and I think that's so fun. It's very much stuck in my memories. My mom had one. I bet she still does. I had one. I think it's just really a fun image. Everybody recognizes this as a sewing pin cushion. Color in the greenery up at the top with some of my yellow-green markers. I love the little pins sticking out of the top. I also very much enjoy that this stamp set has the little pin image. It's teeny tiny. There are some teeny tiny images and teeny tiny dies in this stamp set, but they work so well with this. In fact, I am going to be stamping some of those pins here in a little bit and using those with my collage of images for my finished card. I did not quite get the color combination I wanted for the pink thread on my spool of thread, so I will be coloring that again with one of my other images. It just was a little too dark. I used a color combination that's just a little more muted than I actually wanted. I was going for more cool tones, a little bit brighter. There's my thimble in shades of cool gray. For this large thimble, if you wanted to, I did not do it for this card, but there is an image in the stamp set where you can stamp the little lines of the thread to go around. I think it might have been fun to take a coordinating orange color of Lawn Fawn ink, maybe carrot, and stamp those on or over the Copic coloring to give it a little bit of texture. Here's where I colored in some pink thread, and I like that color combination better. I did die cut all of the images with the coordinating Sewn with Love dies, and I decided to stamp a little heart on the dial there on the front of the sewing machine from the Sewn with Love stamp set and color it in with my red Copic markers. Now I am going to take the greetings from this stamp set. They are fantastic because you can mix and match. That is one of my favorite things about a lot of the newer Lawn Fawn stamp sets, is that there are lots of assortments of phrases and words, so you can perfectly stamp the greeting that you want for your cards. I'm going to use a powder tool over my background. This is a rectangle die cut with a cross-stitched small rectangle die from Bristol Smooth cardstock. I am going to ink up my greeting, stamp that on my rectangle with Versamark ink, and then heat emboss this with white embossing powder, and then heat set that. I'm going to be doing a little embossed resist. I want my background to be fairly light so that my images are the stars of this card, but I wanted my greeting to obviously go with this, but I felt like black ink or another color of ink was just going to be too bright. I really wanted it to kind of blend all into the background, still be visible, but blend in. So I'm going to carefully apply squeezed lemonade and dried marigold distress inks to the background, blend those together, and then I will buff any additional ink off of the embossed areas. I'll also wipe around all of the edges. The Bristol cardstock tends to be very forgiving. You won't be able to remove all of it, but I tried to keep it within the cross-stitched lines of the background, and a little of it got over to the left there, and I'm just kind of rubbing it away. If you work quickly enough, you can kind of rub some of it away. It's not all going to move, but it will definitely lighten it. Then I will go ahead and start building the scene. So I'm going to start with the sewing machine, my largest image, and simply attach all of the rest of these around the sewing machine. So I've got my pin cushion, my thimble, and I like this color of background because it still makes all of these images very prominent on the card design. I'll put one of my pins down there next to the pin cushion. I'm just putting something heavy on top of that. Because those are such small images, I did use liquid adhesive to attach that to my card. And I don't want it to move, so I tend to like to put something heavy on top like an acrylic block to hold that down until it's completely dry. I'll put two of my spools there to the right of the sewing machine, and I'm going to tip over the last one to the left. I have two additional little pins that I want to put down here below the sewing machines. I'm going to overlap them a little bit, again using a little liquid adhesive. And then I stamped some additional hearts from the Sewn with Love stamp set and colored them in with my red Copic markers. In fact, I ended up stamping 3 of those, not just 2. It reinforces the theme and adds just a little bit more interest to that background of the card. Here's that last one. I'm using the Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink for all of this. They work perfectly. This is the perfect ink for Copic coloring. I absolutely love it. So there is my background. Next, I'm going to take a little glossy accents and add some detail to parts of this card design. So I'm applying it over the hearts. I'm going to also apply it over the pins on the card, so the tops of the pins are glossy, so just tiny little dabs of glue. Also the dials on my sewing machine, just added a little bit of interest to these. It's going to give a little bit of gloss and a little bit of dimension to just a few parts of my sewing machine. And then I need to set this aside to completely dry. I've die cut a large rectangle from the zigzag rectangle stackables and placed it on my white side fold card base. And then I'll finish with my Sewn with Love or You're So Thoughtful panel right there in the middle to finish this card. Thanks for joining me today for this clean and simple card created with the Lawn Fawn Sewn with Love stamps and dies. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Lawn Fawn stamps and dies that you might be interested in. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.